Hi guys, this is my presentation for The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Braken. Since we can't be in class tomorrow, I chose to screencastify this. I hope you like it. So, the book I'm talking about today is The Darkest Minds, and it's by Alexandra Braken. It was written in 2012, and they just came out with a movie in 2018. The book is a little bit different than the movie I've heard. I haven't watched it yet. I really want to, but the book is really good. So I'm going to start off with the characters. It's super important that we start off with the characters first because if you don't have a sense of the characters, you don't know how the book's going to be run. So our main character is Ruby, and all of these pictures of the characters are taken from the movie. So these are the actual cast members that play these characters. Some of them not what I pictured in my head, but that's besides the point. So our first character is Ruby. She's the main character of the novel, and she can read other people's minds. She can also manipulate other people's minds, and she can erase memories, which is super important. And throughout the novel, she struggles uh, with her abilities and whether or not she can find her identity or not. But she is a very strong female character. Liam is the second character. He is basically Ruby's best friend and kind of love interest throughout the novel. He can move objects with his mind and is the mastermind behind all of the children escaping the rehabilitation camps. Charles is basically his sidekick. He's nicknamed Chubbs, and he has advanced intelligence, but with that advanced intelligence, he's very quiet. He's closed off. When he first meets Ruby, he's really rude because he doesn't know how to respond um, to a new person. But eventually, as the book goes on, you see Chubbs and you see his relationship with Ruby and Liam and Zoo grow. And he becomes a lot more personable throughout the end of the novel. Suzumi, also nicknamed Zoo, has the ability to control electricity. So she wears these yellow gloves the whole time. She's 10, so she's the youngest of the four main characters that stay together throughout the novel. But she doesn't speak. She was traumatized in the rehabilitation camps, so she only communicates through written word and through like facial expressions and hand movements. Clancy is President Gray's son, and he plays a very important role in helping out the children of the United States. I'm not going to tell you what it is because that would ruin the book, and I don't want to ruin the book for any of you guys. And similar to Ruby, he can also manipulate people's minds, so he has the same ability that Ruby does, which is a very important concept throughout the novel. And lastly, the last of the important characters is Kate. And she is a Children's League officer, and the book will explain what the Children's League is. Again, I don't want to ruin it because I hope you guys read it. And she basically helps Ruby escape from Thurmond Rehabilitation Camp. She plays a very, very important role in the book, as well as the second book and throughout the series. So the second thing that's super important before we get into the plot summary are the abilities. So in this book, since it's dystopian fiction, it's not really realistic in the sense where all of the children have these special abilities or powers, but it is kind of realistic in the same way. They still live in the United States. They still, I mean, they talk about West Virginia and Ohio and all of the actual states that we know, but they all have abilities. So blue, if you have a blue ability, you're able to move objects with your mind. So Liam is considered blue in this novel. Green is where you possess enhanced intelligence. So Chubbs is a green. Yellow is the ability to control electricity and power, and that would be Zoo. Reds really aren't mentioned that much in the novel. They're more of, I mean, we don't really meet a red in the novel, but they're important in the end of the novel and then throughout the series. Reds are able to start and control fire, and then oranges are able to control the minds of others. And according to the book, they are the most feared and the most dangerous of the 5 different abilities. And Clancy and Ruby are both oranges. So then a really important quote that I thought kind of related to the abilities was on page 8, and it says the government was never scared of the kids who might die or the empty spaces they would leave behind. They were afraid of us, the ones who lived. So this kind of brings out a sense of the adults being very scared of all of these children with the powers and what they do and why they send them to the rehabilitation camps to begin with. So for the plot summary, I'm going to first start by reading this quote because I think it's super important. If a child demonstrates any of the above symptoms, register him or her at ian.gov and wait to be contacted about the local hospital that he or she would be taken to. So this was on page 7. I'm actually going to read. So it was on page 7, and it's a letter that all of the children got sent home with from school one day about the possible symptoms that they could have. Ian is basically a disease that all of these children have, and it is, let me see, it stands for, on here somewhere. So it stands for idiopathic adolescent acute neurodegeneration. So basically, it's this like made up disease in this dystopian novel, and it forces children to have abilities, but it also kills them. So all these parents are really scared of their children because they have abilities, but they're also really scared because children are just dropping dead for no reason. So that's the main like start of the novel. And so this novel follows the story of Ruby, who in the beginning, she's 10 years old and she's taken to Thurman Rehabilitation Center because her parents end up being worried that she's going to die from Ian, and they're kind of scared about her abilities. And at Thurman, 5 years, at least 5 years pass. It's between 5 or 6 years that pass at Thurman, where Ruby learns that children ages 10 to 15 are feared by adults because of their special abilities. She also learns that she's considered one of the most dangerous abilities, being an orange. However, she hides that from all of the adults at Thurmond, and they think she's a green. I don't know how she did it, but she did. Then Ruby eventually escapes from Thurmond with help from Kate, an agent from the Children's League. And after she escapes, with Kate, she sees something that's kind of disturbing, so she runs away from Kate, and she ends up finding Liam, Chubbs, and Zoo, who are the 3 characters that I talked about earlier. And throughout, I think, the last 3/4 of the book, those characters have many adventures to find their homes, find their families, and find themselves. I don't really want to ruin the plot, so that's where I'm going to stop, but it's a really good book. Really think you should read it. Yeah, it's really good. So during our group discussion, we talked a lot about the themes that were in the book. So the 3 main themes that we came up with were what is family, what is it considered, how does Ruby consider family, how do children in the book define family. So usually when one thinks of family, they think of like a nuclear family where they have parents and they have children and they have siblings and whatnot. However, in this novel, family is not defined as parents because obviously parents are scared of their children and children are all on their own. So, in this novel, family is more defined as people who you put your trust into, and it's not defined biologically, it's more defined by the relationships you develop by your choice. The second theme that we thought of where it was a search for identity. So throughout the novel, Ruby, as well as a few other characters, but mainly Ruby, is trying to find her identity and who she is. I said at the beginning of the novel, everyone thought she was a green, which means you have advanced intelligence. However, she does find out by herself that she is an orange and that she's able to control people's minds and she's able to erase people's memories. And she struggles with being able to control that power and not hurt others around her. But at the end of the novel, she has a little bit better grasp on her abilities and her identity, but it's not fully developed. And I really do think it'll develop throughout the series. And that's why I want to read the last 3 books. And then the last thing we talked about was fate. So the concept of fate comes up a few times throughout the novel, mainly when Chubbs talks about Watership Down. And it basically is more or less defined as the future that you decide. And many characters, mainly Chubbs, thinks that you can define your own future in the choices you make. So I'm going to finish the rest of this video in a different video because I can't record more than 5 minutes. So for the second video, you will get the last 5 slides of my presentation.